introducing what we've been calling rhythm-oriented ontology. In order to do that, I would like to have objects to remind you this is not something about object-oriented ontology, but rather about rhythm-oriented ontology. So this is going to be one of our objects, metronome. This is going to be another one of our objects. Hope you can see it. And these are the objects that I'm going to distribute to you. Well, at least to some of you. These are nice egg maracas. Have one. Have one. You've got one already. You can show people how to do it. And I would like you to express. Have one? Yes, one. And there's 3 more left. And I would like to ask you to... One more left. And I'd like you to express how you feel about what I'm talking about with your maracas. But please don't do it before somebody starts, right? And this is another object that we might need eventually nearby. And because I'm going to be kind of performing, reading, and I don't speak the language, I decided to make some copies, not a lot, of the text I'm going to be reading from. I'm afraid that's not quite enough, but I suppose we can kind of share. Maybe those who can get the egg maracas should get the text. Justice thing. Text. You want us to Okay, so there's more. Yeah, there's more. Yeah. And there's more. Yeah, there's more, and there's more. And there's one for you, yeah. Okay, let's go in because otherwise we're going to be short of time. Of course, what you're hearing is pretty much the title of the talk, so that you don't forget. Right now, tuck, something erupts. At this moment, something takes place. Something occupies the place. Something takes over the place where things happen, the land of what happens. Something arises there. Something is brought about. A tick. Something unfolds. The tick. It unfolds for those who are in the place, in the land where things happen. From the point of view of those who are not in such a place, it doesn't unfold. It carries on well folded. One has to be in this place to hear what is taking place. What is this land? Etienne Souriau had a name for it. One of his efforts to convey the idea of a surexistence, nothing above any existence, nothing shinier, nothing more sublime than any mode of existence, but simply where, a place where all the modes of existence, whatever exists, in any way meet. In order to exist, they might follow different paths, but they have to arrive there, in that place. His name for this place was Carrefour Existentiel. That is, a crossroad, an existential crossroad. Something had to cross those roads in order to exist. In whatever form, mode, spice, texture that existence takes up. Only for those existing, for those in the carrefour, there is a difference between what could have happened and what ticked. Between what is virtual and what is actual. The carrefour is a borderline, a fine line, tiny, a tick. The line crossed by what steps into existence, into the place of what exists. To be is to meet whatever else is. Existence is some sort of meeting. The crossroad is a meeting place, the carrefour. To exist is to go beyond the pale. It is set by a line only seen by whatever has crossed the line. If you're not in the place, nothing takes place. There is no event, no happening, no arrival for those who are not in the platform. An event has to precede the tick, 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 and then go on and tack. Nothing ever happens in the McTaggart's B series. Time doesn't stand without that now, 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 now. The A series is what makes things happen because it sets the stage for the indexical, the positional, the dispositional, position, disposition, disposition, position, disposition. A disposition can only manifest by making something take place. If nothing is coming, like in a B series, a handless clock, dispositions become irrelevant. They're all unmanifested. Something that could happen, but its time never comes. The A series introduces tense. It sets something moving because it produces a kind of a Doppler effect among what happens. I keep going, and the sunset looks ahead, comes close, lies behind. I keep going. The beach stays put, and the seagull arrives, lands and flies. Its landing was ticks away, ticks away, ticks away. But the beach was ticking. It was sitting in the carrefour, in the crossroad. How could it have happened that having been once so far in advance, they were now as much behind us? The carrefour is like the A series. It is for those who are taking place. An A series, seen from outside, is a B series. It's only from the point of view of something inside that something else takes place. A tick. A tick. A tick changes everything. In which tick are you? In which tack? The A series introduces tense. McTaggart himself despaired of the reality of time because time makes things less absolute. less coherent or less neutral. One has to be in attack in particular. Things look different in different ticks. And it does matter after which tack you are. In which tick? In which tack? In which tick? In which tack? Tense. It's tense. Tense. Tension. Extensive. Intensive. Tense. In order to come to the carrefour of existences, something has to be in a present that becomes past after being in the future. It has to happen. Events carry whatever is carried through the fine line towards the carrefour. There is a tectonics under the carrefour. Things that urge to take place. Things that are about to take place. Things that could take place if only something else triggers. Potentialities, dispositions. This is the lesson Deleuze draws from Leibniz in his Le Prix. A predicate is an event. In Leibniz, it is the instruction for an event. To be Adam in this world is to sin, among other things. Predicates are dispositional in this sense. They carry an event that passes. Predicates host events. Apple is ripe, so it has gone through a process of growth. Sky is bright, so I know the sun has risen. Clock is working, so it has been manufactured. If it is so, even predicates that seem categorical, such as solidity or extension, host ticks and tacks. In fact, ticks and tacks are themselves carriers of events. The tick that has passed, the tack that is about to pass. To take place, something has to meet whatever else is taking place. Something takes place today. The farmer came to feed the chicken. The sun rose, the water boiled. What would unfold next? In order for anything to happen next, a tick has to happen next. That is, something has to happen next. I can doubt the sun to rise tomorrow, but only if I doubt. Only if I don't doubt that there is something to tick and usher in tomorrow. Deleuze calls the past répétition, repetition, but also rehearsal. The present, the repeater, and the future, the repeated. The calendar, the rhythm of the stars, they will tick. In order for something to come to the carrefour, at least something else has to come to the carrefour. Something has to be repeated, 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 to lie out the future in order for something else to be expected or not expected. So if I talk about tomorrow, there should be a tomorrow that is more or less repeating past days that have passed. Otherwise, what sense can I make of the next day, the next year, the next hour, or the next minute? To conceive of the future is to conceive of a tick to come. Blanchot writes in the Écriture du désastre, nous sommes au bord du désastre sans que nous puissions le situer dans l'avenir. We are in the brink of a disaster, but we cannot place it in the future. Because a disaster is something unexpected, so it's not in the future. The future is made of what is expected. For instance, the calendar of days to come. The unpredictable is not placed in the future, the next tick. When will it come? Something has to tick the tick. Something has to clock the clock. There is no clock that would prepare a future for every tick and every tack. because such an independent Ur clock would have no tense, no present, no now for anything, no 8 series. Those Ur ticks would have nothing to pass through. To exist in a Carrefour is to coexist. A tick is brought about. Leibniz was firmly stepping in rhythmic territories, I believe. He put together the idea of predicate as events and the idea of composibility. Things exist in a world. They exist if they coexist, if they coexist, if they exist with something else. Yet, he thought things had to be prepared to come to a world. He imagined something like a scored concerto, a score. Still, he opened the way for thinking the world in terms of rhythms. Rhythms. The eruption of things in a carrefour of existences has an acoustic element to it. The noise of things happening to come about, a beat. It's sonic. It's sonic. It's a sonic ontology, not a visual one, not about landscapes, but about beats. Sonic ontology, an ontology of noise and beats instead of images. A rhythm-oriented ontology. To beat is to beat. This is not a stethoscope, as you would imagine. No, this is rather a tool for ontography, I suppose. We could call it an ontoscope, rather. A tool to inspect what beats, and therefore to inspect what is. Rhythms. 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 Wow. Rhythms. 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 Rhythm is intense. It infects. Rhythms impregnate other rhythms. A rhythm-oriented ontology is not about distinctness. It is a social ontology, in the sense of Gabriel Tard, in the sense of things that act collectively by following what is around them, by depending on what is around. When sociality is high, each thing repeats the things they find around them, like molecules or colonies of bacteria, like cellular automata. In the general case, different things repeat each other, but repetition is what Deleuze has called dressed repetition, not naked. Something is entrained by the beats heard, but entrainment is mediated by one's fold, by one's folds, 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 mediated by one's folds. I cannot dance to a rhythm that cannot be expressed by my folds, by the way I am folded. I move my leg to the music, but to the limit of my muscles, to the limit of the articulation of my bones, to the limit of my folds. I can be entrained, entrainment, drifted repetition. It's like Chinese whisper. You hear what you can hear, and you pass the message along as you can. So every instance of the repetition is mediated by a bunch of folds. Drifted repetition. A flower is like the sun, but in its own way. A flower parodies the sun. The insect parodies the flower. The ice parodies the winds. Recapitulation. Folds copy folds. Folds copy folds. Beats copy beats. In their own rhythm. Manuel de Landa talks about intensive time. Time capable to contaminate, spreading rhythms, takes place in inorganic phenomena as well as in animal life. For instance, in menstrual cycles of humans. One woman on the pill entrains the period of a bunch around her. Entrainment. If intensity is the capacity to infect what is around, rhythms carry a rate of intensity. Beat, 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 beam. Entrainment is dressed repetition, sensitive to embodiment. All rhythm is modulated by embodiment, by the folds, by how can I bend my feet to tap. I tap my foot to the rhythm I capture, to the rhythm to which my folds can be entrained. But by doing that, I come up with another rhythm, a rhythm that also entrains around it. Induction itself is a form of entrainment. We can only think about the whereabouts of the sun tomorrow if we have a sense of rhythm. Enough of a sense of rhythm to be sure when tomorrow is. The next thing. The future makes sense only if there is a clock. A cycle or unexpected rhythm we're tied to the repeated, the repeated, the repeated, the repeated, the repeated. Habit making is entrainment and production of further cycles. To learn to follow a rule, say +2, is to be entrained by a rhythm. You learn if your folds and the rhythms that you have can be entrained to the rhythm being taught. Otherwise you don't. To incorporate in the concept of rhythm of one's body another rhythm. To learn a public language is to be entrained using all the resources one has. From one's sensorial capacities, to one's processing capacity, to one's capacity to articulate. The resources, of course, are all private. My folds, my curves, the rhythms of my metabolism, the rhythms of my breathing, the rhythms of my tongue. Language, however, is public, but accent is somehow private. To learn to follow a rule cannot be done if we cannot associate the written to be learned to to others that are already available to us. This is a training, and training, and training, and training. There should be something in the pupil that prepares him to the learning. And I guess this has to do with the cycles, the pupil, and bodies. One's body provides what can be captured, because a body is a modulation and a mediation, but mediations are modulations. It is a musical instrument, a drum, a metronome, of what can take place. A rhythm-oriented ontology is an ontology of pulses and folds. Space and time are traces of the beats of the events. Not an ontology of objects or properties, but an ontology of folds in space and time. Differentials that appear when they are requested. One never knows what a body can do, what it can dance, what it can be entrained. A different rhythm uncovers unsuspected folds, unsuspected capacities to bend. These differentials, pulses, and folds go on indefinitely. A fold is made of folds. A fold is made of folds. A fold is made of folds. The silence between two beats is measured by beats that cannot be heard. Modulation is embodiment. The rhythm that can be captured by entrainment is a rhythm that fits in the folds. I cannot dance to the rhythm of millennia passing. In a rhythm-oriented ontology, compositions are produced by entrainment. Each thing filters the rhythm around it. In fact, it composes by modulating. In a world of rhythms and capture, there is a general version of Kant's formula that intuitions without concepts are blind. And the general formula is signals without modulations are blind. Modulation is about hearing. Without it, there is a kind of a white deafness of too much noise that cannot be heard. Folds modulate. Without modulation, there's just too much to be heard. I rely on the rhythms of my breathing, my metabolism, my locomotion, just as a sunflower relies on the rhythm of the sun. Myself, an individual object, only to the extent as it couples with different rhythms. A coupling, a concerto, or rather, a jump session that has not yet reached its end. Its end. Its end. Some last ticks and tacks. Rhythm is connected to flows. Flows that speed up. Flows that keep their pace. The flow of events. Accelerations. Now, what about nothingness? The negative is a rhythm. A complete order rhythm. But also the absence of tick that precedes the tack. Surely, nothingness cannot be noticed if there is no clock. If there is no metronome, nothing precedes the metronome. Nothing sets the stage for the carrefour before the road starts crossing. There is no carrefour before the carrefour. The rest is silence.